Hey guys, Josh from Sportitude here. Today with our shoe review video. The Kayano 25 has just landed in the warehouse and look, we're pretty pumped about this shoe. I've been lucky enough to have a pair for about 6 weeks now. I've done a few runs in them just to get a bit of a feel for them. And obviously I've ran in 24s as well. So just from my own personal experience, I'm going to tell you about the features that have changed in the new 25 versus what we used to in the 24. And yeah, so it's going to take a while. So go make yourself a cup of tea and let's get stuck in. So I've got to hold up my slightly used 25 through here. So I've been for two 5K runs, nothing over the top, just to get a bit of a feel and a read on this specific shoe. So I can tell you right now at home, the new 25 has got a new outsole configuration. It's got a new midsole configuration. There's a slight tweak in their arch support. There's definitely tweaks in the upper, and there's a tweak in the heel counter. But it's such an iconic shoe, they don't want to recreate the wheel because, you know, change is a bit scary and too much change can put a few people off. So they've stuck to the integrity, which has made this shoe a very iconic shoe, especially here in Australia. So what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to start from the bottom and we're going to work our way up. So I've got my 24s here, which I'm just going to show you some feature differences between the two as we go through this video. I'm going to get the 25 in my hand through here. So what we've got here is we've got a pretty aggressive outsole in the sense that it looks like there's a fair bit of traction and grip, which in comparison to, I should apologise in advance the dirtiness of this little guy here, but hope you don't mind. But as you come through, you can see what Asics have done. They've kept with what they've called their guidance line. So you can see that line that comes through the middle of the shoe curls around to that forefoot. Same thing from the 24 to the 25. However, the differences are mainly in the thickness of the outsole, or the rubber. So this outsole configuration has a fair bit more depth in it. So roughly, it looks to the naked eye, I haven't measured it, but I have to say there's 1 millimetre to 2 millimetres extra rubber on the outside. So that for me will not only provide a bit of extra durability underneath, but will actually provide a wee bit of cushioning too. The extra rubber just provides a little bit of impact guidance when your foot hits the ground. So the outsole configuration, slight tweak in the rubber. What I'd like to touch on here, which all of these features are all linked together. So I'll just speak about the outsole. We've got the flex screws, 1, 2, 3 flex screws through that forefoot. Now remembering this shoe is designed for the overpronator. So that person that comes down, whether it be heel strike or mid starts, and rolls in over that arch and loads up that first big toe on toe off. So pronation, arch rolls in, foot comes down, mid starts, rolls in, toes off. So essentially that's what this shoe is engineered for. So underneath the shoe here, that 1, 2, 3 flex screws, they've got an encapsulated piece which sits between flex screw 1 and 2, right through there. So that there alone gives that toe off a little bit of extra durability. So if I just bring that closer to the camera, as I'm bending through there, you can see that rubber encapsulated between the two just holds that outsole together, gives the foot a bit of extra support when you're toeing off. A little bit, not, I wouldn't rely on it, but a little bit of extra support. Let's compare it to the 24 right here in front of me. So 1, 2, 3 flex screws, the same as the 25. However, between flex screw 1 and 2, there is no encapsulated rubber. So you can see as I'm bending through there, it is a more flexible outsole configuration. Now, that being said, doesn't mean the 25 is going to be stiffer, because I want to start talking about the midsole now. So let's get cracking in the midsole. Obviously, there's a fair bit that's changed, but I'll stick with the basics first. So stack heights. The men's Kayano, we're running with a 22-12 offset. So 22 millimetres in the heel, 12 millimetres in the forefoot, 10 millimetre heel to toe gradient. The ladies, however, this little guy here is a 24-11. So there's a 13 millimetre difference between heel to toe gradient, or the gradient is 13 millimetres. It's been something that's been debated for a considerable amount of years. And obviously, I personally think that Asics and a couple of other brands out there do a great job in splitting the engineering between men's and women's. We are very different. Our musculoskeletal system is quite different, so it's vitally important they tweak the shoes to suit the specific runners, men's and women's, of course. So that slight difference in offset is vitally important, and it's really, really good to know that they are considering the biomechanics from obviously men's and women's and putting it into the right shoe. So now moving on to the midsole, we'll talk about the cushioning system. What Asics have done, they've got 2-layered midsole essentially. They've got a new system which is called Flight Foam Propel, and then I've got a Flight Foam Light. Now, I'll talk to you about Flight Foam Propel first. So it's probably easier if I hold the men's shoe here because it's split between the two colours. You've got white and then you've got the blue. So the Flight Foam Propel is this blue layered midsole that sits on top of the midsole at the back, around your heel, comes through, and it becomes obviously thicker as you come down to the forefoot. So Flight Foam Propel is a more responsive flight foam from their range. And then you look at the Flight Foam Light, which is this white section at the back through here, obviously designed for a heel striker, so you want your softest foam essentially between the two at the back half of the shoe through here. So that's where that white foam comes around the outsole through here, and as you can see on the medial side, white as you come around. It does change densities when you get to that archer port. Obviously it's not identified anymore, but we'll get to that in 2 ticks. So that is their lightest and softest foam between the two. So it gives a fair bit more cushioning. Now the cool thing about the Flight Foam Light is Asics have actually got a good story behind this. There's quite a bit of natural waste that goes into the engineering of that Flight Foam Light. Now it's made up of, this is what they've told us, about 40% of organic fibres which has been pulled from sugarcane waste. So there you have it, sugarcane waste coming into the Kayano 25. It's a cool little story. I do like it. You know, we talk about brands being a little bit more environmentally friendly, and you know, Asics are happy to put their sort of hat on that and say yes we are. So 40% of the fibres in the Flight Foam Light is made up of sugarcane waste. Cool. So that's the cushioning systems. I wouldn't be doing my review, or Asics wouldn't be doing their job if they put in some gel cushioning somewhere. So of course they've got that visible gel through the back half through here for that heel strike zone that splits the two Flight Foam components. So that gel cushioning gives that foot a bit of impact when it hits the ground. And, which is a bit tricky, I need to talk to you about this next feature. They do still have their forefoot gel, which is right underneath your first metatarsal. However, on the Asics shoe, it doesn't actually say. Usually we can pick up an Asics shoe and it tells us a bit of a map, a process map, where they have the cushioning, etc. Usually there'd either be gel written on the heel, the forefoot here, or they'd have gel written on the side or the lateral side, just to let you know that there's some forefoot gel. They haven't done it this year, but do not be alarmed, it is there. It is certainly there. There's a forefoot gel component right under your first metatarsal joint, roughly about the size of that little circle I've got through here. So that sits right under your first met head. Cool, so that's a midsole, and in terms of the cushioning component, let's talk to you about the archer port now. So, Duomax archer port versus Dynamic Duomax. So, the main difference between the two through here is that the Duomax support we've got through here, from my understanding, is a little bit lighter. There's no real over-the-top benefit between going for Dynamic Duomax over just traditional Duomax. So that's a little bit lighter, and it covers a little bit less of the shoe. So it's hard to tell to the naked eye. Again, Asics and other shoes gone by have used different coloured foam densities to identify where specific supports sit. Now, you're just going to have to trust me on this one. The Dynamic Duomax from the inside here of my finger through to the inside of my finger through there. So that's where the Dynamic Duomax sits on the Kayano 24. Putting that down now, picking up the Kayano 25. The Duomax arch port between my finger there, and it runs right through to where that white foam sits just there. So the Duomax does not come into play on the Flight Foam Propel. It sits on this Flight Foam light midsole component. So ever so slightly does angle down through to that forefoot. Now the reason they've been able to do that and take away the Duomax, or Dynamic Duomax, is because they've got the Flight Foam Propel, which is a more responsive midsole. And what they're trying to achieve through here is getting a slightly more responsive connection between your foot and the midsole and what we call that braking zone. So you've got impact zone. Braking zone is that phase of your running gait when you're trying to slow down the movement of the foot before it gets ready and prepped to toe off. So by having the responsive midsole that sits on the forefoot layer through here, you can ever so slightly shave away the amount of archer port as you come through after that braking phase, and utilising the performance of this midsole to get your foot in a stable position to get ready to toe off. Very clever by Asics to do that. You can reduce the effect of a archer port system by just using different components of midsole or different densities of midsole to create that effect. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. I'm hopefully some of this is sinking in. If it's not, please add a comment in this video at any stage, and myself or one of our our support team will get back to you as soon as we possibly can. So, midsole moving to the upper. So, I'd like to talk to you about the fit of the shoe because that is absolutely critical. For those of you that might have watched our 23 versus 24 video, there was quite a bit of change in the fit of that shoe. 23s were quite narrow and shallow through the forefoot. 24s I made them a little bit more generous. I can tell you right now that the 25s is again a little bit more generous through the forefoot. So what we find here in terms of the shape, if I just hold this in front of you through here, we tend to find, well, we found with the 24, it still came to quite a point. Asics still created a bit more depth in the upper, but it still came to quite a point through that forefoot. So there was still a little bit of issues with some runners just finding that forefoot pinching a little bit too much through that toe-off phase. Remembering, we still want our foot to be able to display and disperse that shock on toe-off. We don't want it to be cramped and tight inside the shoe. That'll cause a few issues as we keep running. So what they've done here is we've got a new engineered midsole. So naturally they've probably put it on a different platform and they've pressed this midsole, they've made it a fraction wider potentially, and now I haven't got my ruler out and measured that. So what Asics have been able to do is they've actually been able to create a slightly more rounded forefoot. Now not to the point where we're talking a box-shaped forefoot, it's just got a little bit more to offer in the volume and the platform support when you're toeing off. So therefore, I personally found when I'm using both, I just want to let this know, I do like 24 and I do like 25. I've only been for 2 runs in this little guy, but that was the first thing I noticed. As soon as I put my foot in, I could lift my toes a little bit, had a little wriggle space. I went, this is kind of nice, I like this. I usually like a secure fit on my foot, but I did like the freedom that this little guy offered through the forefoot. So that's one feature that they've changed, which is rather noticeable in the first fit of the shoe. So what they've done, obviously increase the volume through the forefoot. The upper, they've just got a little bit of what we call underlay support. So it's very hard to see. I'm going to bring this as close as I possibly can. Just concentrate after that navy mesh. Can you see a couple of speckles of red in there? I hope you can, because if you can't, you have to trust me on that one. There is a couple of speckles of red. So that's just the underlay system, which runs underneath the mesh, the breathable mesh, which connects to the midsole. So obviously Asics are concentrating on getting the support from the ground up or under and your foot down. However, the upper will hold you in as best as it possibly can as well. So when you're going through that mid-stance phase, those underlays, which are connected from the midsole to the eyelets of the shoelacing system through here, just gives that foot a little bit of extra hold, a bit of extra stability when you're running so you don't fall off or move off that platform through there. So we've got a slightly wider toe box. We've got the underlays, which they had in the 24 as well. You can see through those yellow lines, a bit more visible through there, those underlays in the medial side. Coming into play still again in the 25, just slightly more hidden. As we're coming back through here, they've got a nice amount of depth for that navicular region. I think that's a critical part of the overall fitting of the shoe. You do never want a shoe to be too tight through that navicular region. One, when you go from impact to braking, your foot can sometimes pitch and stretch up. So therefore, we don't ever want to be restricted through this region through here. It can create all sorts of issues. Put your hand up at home if you've got pins and needles when you're going for a run. We all have, more often than not. So that, therefore, when we're too tight through here, or the lacing system too tight or too shallow with the engineering of the shoe, it can minimise the blood flow down to your toes and back. So going for an hour run, 10 minutes into a run, if that's too tight through there, you're going to get that little pins and needles effect. Stop, loosen your laces, and you start to question the overall fit of the shoe. I can tell you right now, it's nice and deep through that navicular region, which is great. Still getting the support though. Just coming back, we've got the external heel counter, which Asics, I must admit, do a great job with. Looking at the 24 versus the 25, I'm going to do my best again to bring this close to the camera, but just from the rear angle of the shoe, they have that external device which sits around the shoe, and then on the medial side, it looks very similar on the medial side amount with regards to how much real estate that back half it carries and the support it actually entrusts. And then as you come through to the lateral side, it's almost the same configuration. Where they've tweaked it is to create a slightly better fit in the base of the heel with the new 25s. They don't have this cross beam, which was sitting in the 24s. That cross beam right there was obviously there to design to give the foot a little bit more stability when it came down to the ground. However, with the 25s, they don't have that cross beam. They've got almost like an internal capsulated heel counter through here. So the external device is doing the job of holding it, cradling the foot in, but this little guy through here with that light blue lines and navy blue lines sit there, that's just that internal extra support and device. It's just ever so slightly giving the shoe a little bit more support when it comes down to the ground. So remembering, when your foot hits the deck, bang, not only you want the impact guidance from here up as you come through the mid stance, you want the midsole to do the job, but if your foot or if your calcaneus, the base of your heel, is moving around when your foot hits the ground going through the mid stance phase, it can cause all sorts of delayed onset issues as you go up your shins, your knees and your hips. So you really want that calcaneus to be nice and solid when it hits the ground. And that's essentially the effect of this external heel counter device through there. All in all, I really do like the new update. I've always found it hard in the past, not hard I shouldn't say, but there's always been a difference between the GT2000 and the Kayano. There's always been subtle differences. Sometimes it's been harder to explain than others, and depending on the year and the models that are coming out. The 24 and 25, there's quite a split, obviously with the new 2000 and version 6, which is still on the market now, having that flight foam midsole. But now when we're looking at the 25, there's never been such a bigger difference between the Kayano and the GT2000. So what we're finding is it fits like a true Kayano shoe should. And I mean that because a Kayano wearer is a runner who's probably running consistent speeds, long distances. They're out on the road for quite a considerable amount of time, whether you're a runner who likes to run maybe 5, 10, 15 Ks a week, that's still okay, you can use a Kayano. But if you're a runner that's really hitting the pavement quite hard, you're out there for 30 plus kilometres a week and running at nice consistent speeds, the Kayano is a great shoe because it offers a consistent feel the whole way through the shoe. Now, if you're a runner that wants to vary your speeds and look at doing some tempo runs, etc., you're probably not going to like the performance of this guy here. Reason being is, and I said this with the 24 verse GT2000 review as well, they're a slightly heavier shoe, not like a gumboot, but they're slightly heavier, so for that speed tempo runs, it's not going to feel as light and as responsive on your foot as a GT2000, for example. Okay guys, I think that's time to wrap up. Obviously, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do. Guys, we're really passionate about getting as much footwear information to you at home as possible. Running is a great sport and we want everyone out there doing it, and your number one piece of equipment when you're running is your shoes. So your shoe choice is paramount. So there we have it guys. Until next time, happy running and we'll see you soon. Take care.